The decision to end my career was already printed before I sat down. "Let's keep this professional," Marcus Hale said, folding his hands like he was moderating a panel instead of dismantling someone's life. "This is a performance alignment review." I looked at him, then at the rest of the board. No one corrected him. "I'm Marcus Hale," he added, as if anyone in that room didn't know he was the CEO's son. "And before anyone gets emotional, this is about optics, investor confidence, messaging." "Messaging," I repeated softly. He nodded. Carolyn was promoted fast, too fast. And if we're being honest, it wasn't because of technical depth. It was because she presented well. Investors responded to her. A man to my left cleared his throat. Another board member nodded once, quickly, like a reflex. Marcus continued. "That's not a crime, but it does mean she's not essential." I finally spoke. "You've reviewed my deliverables," he smiled. "We've reviewed your role. That wasn't my question." "You're missing the point," he said, voice sharpening. "You have no real talent. You were a face, and faces can be replaced." The words settled in the room like dust. The head of human resources slid a folder across the table toward me. "This is standard procedure," she said, not meeting my eyes. "A termination recommendation. We'll discuss next steps once the board votes." I didn't open it. No one asked me to defend myself. No one asked how the platform ran without a single outage for 18 months. No one asked why the largest enterprise client had requested my name on every technical briefing. They were already done listening. Marcus leaned back. "We expect cooperation, a smooth transition." I watched him talk. I watched who wouldn't look at me. I watched the board chair tap his pen, already thinking about lunch. I didn't argue. I didn't plead. I just noted how confident they sounded. Like they already knew I wouldn't fight back. The story you are about to hear is a fictional work created by the writing team at Her Revenge. It explores power, credibility, and the quiet moments when someone is underestimated, because it is convenient for others to believe they should be. While the characters and events are fictional, the dynamics are inspired by real-world imbalances that play out behind closed doors every day. When the meeting adjourned, Marcus stood first. "We'll follow up," he said, already turning away. I gathered my notes slowly. I hadn't lost my job yet, but I understood something important as I walked out of that room. They weren't asking whether to remove me, they were deciding how quickly. By the time I reached my desk, the insult had already grown legs. "Hey," Jenna said quietly, stopping beside my chair. She worked in product operations and had defended my architecture more than once. "Just so you know, they're saying you're better with people than systems." I looked up. "Who's they?" She hesitated. "It's being framed as concern that you're external-facing, meaning demos, investors, panels." Her voice dropped. "Not decisions." I pulled up my calendar. 3 meetings gone, technical review, architecture sync, deployment sign-off, all replaced with a single block labeled stakeholder touchpoint. "I wasn't told," I said. Jenna gave a thin smile. "That's the point." An email popped up before I could respond. Internal memo. Subject line, role optimization update. I read it once, then again. Carolyn will focus on outward engagement while the core team realigns technical ownership. "Realigns," I repeated. From the aisle behind me, Mark leaned over the divider. "It's not personal," he said. Too quickly. "They're just testing language." "Testing what?" I asked. "Whether I complain, no," he said. "Whether the board nods." I closed the memo. They already did. He exhaled. "They're watching how it lands. If no one pushes back, it becomes truth." Another notification chimed. Meeting invite, mandatory, attendees legal, human resources, product strategy, title IP alignment review. Jenna frowned at my screen. "That's new. So is pretending my work doesn't exist," I said. Mark shook his head. "They wouldn't touch intellectual property without a reason. They wouldn't need one," I said. "Not if they think I'm already gone." He lowered his voice. "Carol, this isn't about how you look. It's about control." I accepted the invite. When the confirmation sent, my calendar filled with silence where my authority used to be. No one said I was being sidelined. No one had to. The story was already written. They were just seeing how easily it would be believed. How do you steal something without ever touching it? The email came from legal just before noon. "Routine update," the message said. "Please review and sign by end of day." The attachment was titled, "Updated Invention Assignment Agreement." I walked it down the hall instead of opening it at my desk. Karen from Human Resources looked up as I stopped in her doorway. "Is this a joke?" I asked, holding up my tablet. She glanced at the title and smiled tightly. "No, it's standard. Everyone signs this. I already signed an invention agreement when I joined. This replaces it." "Why?" Karen folded her hands. "Compliance, alignment. You know how these things go." I opened the document while standing there. The language was clean, polite, familiar. I scrolled. Then I slowed. "This clause," I said, tapping the screen. "It applies retroactively." Karen's smile didn't move. "That's legal's wording. It transfers ownership of work completed before my employment." She exhaled. "Carol, you're overthinking it. I designed the core framework 18 months before I was hired." She lowered her voice. "Everyone signs this. Everyone who built something worth taking," I said. Her eyes flicked to the hall, then back to me. "You don't want to complicate things right now." "Complicate what?" She didn't answer. Back at my desk, I reread the agreement line by line. Each sentence felt deliberate, quiet, surgical. Ownership reassigned. Attribution erased. History rewritten without a single raised voice. Marcus Hale was CC'd on every email. He never replied. At 4:15, another message arrived. From legal again, gentle reminder. It read, "Signature requested by close of business." I checked the board calendar. The vote was scheduled for the following morning. They wanted my work secured before my position was decided. Jenna stopped by, eyes on the document still open on my screen. "They're moving fast. Fast enough to make it look normal," I said. She swallowed. "If you don't sign, they'll say you're uncooperative. If I do," I said, "they'll say I was never essential." At 5:30, Karen sent one last note. "Please confirm receipt." I didn't reply. I saved the document to a private folder, shut down my system, and stood up slowly. They weren't asking for my consent. They were racing the clock. What if the theft was already happening legally? I found it buried in a permissions log I wasn't supposed to be checking anymore. Export request approved. The system note read, "Scope Core Architecture Documentation." Recipient Northbridge Solutions. I stared at the name until it registered. Northbridge wasn't a client. It wasn't a regulator. It was a consulting vendor Marcus had championed during the last strategy offsite. I called IT, who authorized the export. A pause. "It came through product strategy," the analyst said. "Signed off correctly." "By who?" "Marcus Hale." The line went quiet. I walked down to engineering and stopped at the first desk I recognized. "Evan," I said. He was a junior engineer, smart, careful, barely a year out of school. "Can you tell me why my framework is being packaged?" His face drained of color. "I was told it was for review." "By whom?" He swallowed. "Product asked me to prep a clean bundle. No comments. No attribution. Just the framework." "For who?" "Northbridge?" I nodded once. "Did they explain why?" "They said leadership wanted an independent assessment," he said quickly. I didn't touch the logic. "I swear. I know," I said. "That's why they asked you." He looked up at me. "Am I in trouble?" "No," I said. "You followed instructions." But he added, lowering his voice, "They told me not to include your name in the metadata. Said it would bias the review." That was the moment it clicked. No rules had been broken. The access was approved. The request documented. The process clean. They weren't stealing my work. They were laundering it. I returned to my desk and pulled every record tied to the export, timestamps, approval chains, vendor history. Northbridge's financial disclosures didn't take long to find. Marcus Hale's investment firm appeared twice. By the time Evan sent the final confirmation package delivered as requested, my name was already missing from my own system, and someone else was preparing to claim it without ever touching a line of code. What does it cost to prepare for a fight you didn't start? Effective immediately, Paul said, eyes fixed on the conference table. You'll no longer be the final sign-off on deployment. I waited for the rest. This is temporary, he added. Just to reduce conflict while leadership sorts things out. Conflict, I said, or control. He didn't answer. Paul had been my manager for 3 years. He'd praised my work in every quarterly review. Now he couldn't meet my gaze. They asked me to do this, he said quietly. I didn't fight it. I know, I replied. You never do. That landed harder than I expected. His shoulders tightened. I have a team, he said. I can't afford to be on the wrong side of this. Neither could I said. I just didn't get a choice. Later that afternoon, Marcus called a short leadership sync. I wasn't invited. Jenna texted me from inside the room. They're planning continuity. Without you, I typed back. Continuity of what? Her reply came a minute later. The launch. That was when I stopped reacting and started calculating. I pulled up the deployment architecture and traced the pipeline backward. Every path led to the same place, a module I'd designed years ago, patented under my name, integrated so deeply it looked invisible. They could remove my title. They could strip my authority. They could erase my name from documents. They couldn't ship without my approval. Paul came by just before end of day. They're assuming you'll exit after the vote, he said. Gracefully. Of course they are. You could make this easier, he offered. I already did, I said, by building something that works. He hesitated. You're not thinking of blocking the launch. I'm thinking of following the process. I replied, exactly as written. When he left, I sent one email, not to legal, not to the board, to myself. I listed every dependency they couldn't bypass, every safeguard they'd overlooked, every place where my consent wasn't symbolic. They wanted me gone quietly. They hadn't noticed what would stop moving if I did. What if the board underestimated not me but what I owned? I don't need a pitch deck, Diane said over the phone. She was my attorney, calm in the way only people paid to anticipate disaster can be. I need proof that they can't move without you. I have that, I said. They just never bothered to read it. I laid everything out on my screen. Patent filings, dependency maps, licensing clauses tied to modules the platform couldn't replace without a full rebuild. I spoke out loud as I worked, like testifying to myself. This one controls the data ingestion layer, I said. Filed under my name. This one governs adaptive response logic. Same ownership, no assignment, no waiver. Diane listened. And revenue. I pulled up the contracts. 3 enterprise agreements reference those modules directly. Projected licensing exposure over 10 years comes to $650 million. There was a pause. That's not speculative, she said. No, I replied. It's already baked in. When I checked the board materials from the last quarter, it made sense. The technical annex was missing, stripped out, replaced with a summary slide that reduced my work to implementation support. Marcus's handwriting was all over it. They never saw this. I said, they didn't need to, Diane replied. They trusted the filter. I built 2 folders. One labeled Board Review, clean, direct, no drama. The other labeled Legal Record, exhaustive, time-stamped, cross-referenced. Jenna stopped by while I was finalizing it. They're saying you don't have leverage, she whispered. I know. She glanced at my screen. Is that the whole system? It's the part they can't replace, I said. They just don't know it yet. Diane cleared her throat through the phone. Once you put this in front of them, they can't unsee it. I'm counting on that. I closed the folders and sent the calendar reply for the board meeting. Accepted. They thought they'd already read my story. They were about to find out what they'd skipped. What if silence was more dangerous than anger? Marcus didn't wait for the door to close before he started. We've delayed this long enough, he said, hands flat on the table. The company needs clarity. Carolyn's role has become redundant, and the intellectual property needs to be consolidated before launch. The board chair glanced at me. Do you want to respond? I shook my head. Let him finish. Marcus smiled. Relieved? Thank you. As I was saying, her contributions were operational, not foundational. The platform was always a team effort. We're simply formalizing ownership so the company can move forward without disruption. Across the table, legal flipped a page. Human resources stared at their notes. No one challenged him. And for the record, Marcus added, turning toward me. This has nothing to do with personality or perception. It's about competence. I met his eyes and said nothing. When he finally sat down, the room waited. The board chair cleared his throat. Carolyn, I stood, reached into my bag, and placed a thin folder in the center of the table. I didn't speak. I didn't introduce it. I slid it forward. The general counsel opened it. His expression changed on the second page. Where did this come from? He asked. My records, I said. He flipped faster. These are patent filings. Yes. And these diagrams, he continued. They map dependency. I nodded. Marcus leaned forward. This is irrelevant. We've already, Marcus, the board chair said sharply. Enough. The general counsel closed the folder. We need time. For what? Marcus snapped. We're voting. No, the counsel replied. We're not. He looked at the board. There is material exposure here. We need to verify scope, ownership, and contractual impact before any decision. The room shifted. Chairs creaked. Someone checked their phone. The board chair exhaled slowly. We'll pause the vote. Marcus stared at me, disbelief flashing across his face. I sat back down, still silent. Nothing had been decided, but nothing was certain anymore. And for the first time since this started, the room wasn't moving without me. How much risk is one person worth? The general counsel spoke first. We need clarity on dependency. I nodded. You have it. Page 3. The ingestion layer routes through my patented module. Page 7 shows the adaptive logic. Without licensed access, the platform cannot legally ship, Marcus scoffed. That's exaggerated. Then let legal answer, I said. The counsel didn't look up. It's not exaggerated. A board member leaned forward. What happens if we proceed without authorization? Injunction, the counsel replied. Immediate, followed by damages tied to projected revenue. Another voice cut in. Numbers. I met their eyes. 3 enterprise contracts reference those modules by function. Over 10 years, projected licensing exposure totals $650 million. Silence. Marcus turned to his father. This is posturing. The CEO's jaw tightened. Is it? It is, Marcus said quickly. She's threatening. I'm stating conditions. I said, there's a difference. The board chair raised a hand. What conditions? I spoke evenly. Any future access to my work requires a formal license, transparent terms, independent audit rights, and, the counsel added carefully, there's the question of internal access. Yes. I said, there is. Marcus laughed, sharp and hollow. You can't be serious. I said. No access while Marcus Hale remains involved in product decisions. The CEO finally spoke. You're asking me to sideline my son. I'm asking you to reduce liability, I replied. For the company. For the board. For yourself. The counsel closed his notebook. From a risk perspective, continued involvement is untenable. Marcus stood. This is absurd. The board chair didn't look at him. Sit down. No one spoke after that. Not for a long moment. When the CEO finally nodded, it wasn't to me. It was to the reality settling across the table. They weren't choosing sides. They were choosing survival. What's worse than being fired? Being too dangerous to keep. The board chair read the motion without looking up. Effective immediately. Marcus Hale is removed from all operational roles related to product development, intellectual property oversight, and vendor engagement. Marcus stared at him. You can't be serious. The general counsel answered instead. Our insurers won't extend coverage if you remain involved. That's temporary, Marcus snapped. We can negotiate. We tried, the counsel said. They declined. The CEO rubbed his temples. This isn't a punishment. It is, Marcus said. You're choosing her. No, the board chair replied. We're choosing solvency. The vote was quiet. Hands raised. No speeches. No hesitation. When it passed, Marcus didn't storm out. He just sat there, stunned. Like someone realizing the room had moved on without him. Your access will be revoked today, the counsel continued. Credentials, approvals, communications. Marcus laughed once. So I'm still here, just nowhere. No one corrected him. The CEO finally looked at me. Carolyn, the board is prepared to redefine your role. I waited. Independent licensing authority, he said. Clear audit rights, written safeguards, no retroactive assignments, and reporting lines. The counsel added, direct to the board. Paul shifted in his seat. He didn't meet my eyes. I'll need time, I said. The CEO nodded. Of course. Marcus stood. You think this ends it? I met his gaze. It ends your access. He opened his mouth, then closed it. There was nothing left to threaten. When the room emptied, the counsel walked beside me. You handled that cleanly. I handled it accurately, I said. He smiled faintly. That's rarer. I didn't accept the offer that day. I took the documents home. I read every clause. I marked what protected me and what protected them. I had won the vote. What I owed next required a different decision. What does a real ending look like when revenge isn't the goal? I'm not accepting a title, I said, sliding the marked contract back across the table. I'm accepting terms. The general counsel skimmed my notes. Licensing authority, independent audit rights, final approval on deployments, and veto power, I added. If the system ships with my work, it ships clean. The CEO nodded once. Agreed. Paul shifted. You'll still be visible. I don't need visibility, I said. I need control. The counsel initialed the page. Access is restricted to licensed modules only. Any exception requires your written consent. That's the point, I said. When it was done, there was no applause, no handshake tour, just signatures and a quiet understanding that the company would move forward because it had no safer option. Later that afternoon, Jenna leaned into my doorway. They're asking if you want an announcement. No, I said. Let the system speak. She smiled. It already is. I returned to my desk and approved the next deployment. The checks passed. The safeguards held. The platform ran the way it always had because it was finally allowed to. Marcus walked past once. No entourage, no phone pressed to his ear. He slowed when he reached my office. Like he expected something to happen if he looked in. I didn't look up. He moved on. That was the punishment. Not spectacle. Not shouting. Just the slow removal of relevance until there was nothing left to leverage. Before I left that night, the counsel stopped me in the hall. You could have pushed harder. I pushed precisely, I said. He nodded. You stayed. I stayed because I chose to. I replied. Not because I was spared. I sent one final message to the board confirming the license activation and closed my laptop. The truth was documented. The boundaries were written. The system would run correctly tomorrow and the day after that. The lesson I took with me was simple and permanent. Real power does not need permission. It needs preparation, and when you build something that matters, the strongest response is to set terms and let everyone else decide whether they can live with them.